My child, the day did not have to bring you to this moment. You could have kept moving, kept filling the hours with everything that calls for your attention. But something held you here. Something in you paused, settled, and said, "Listen, that was not your own idea. That was me. I am speaking to you now, not to a crowd, not to a general audience, to you exactly as you are in this hour, with whatever is sitting heavy in your chest, with whatever questions have been circling in your mind, with whatever hope you have been afraid to voice out loud in case it fell apart again. I am speaking directly into that place. The weight you have been carrying is not invisible to me. You have walked into this moment carrying more than most people around you realize. You have been managing things that have no easy name. Worries that begin the moment your eyes open in the morning. A fatigue that sleep alone cannot fix. A quietness inside you where something used to live. You have been surviving, my child, at a level far below what I created you for. And part of you already knows this. Do not brush past that knowing. That ache is not weakness. That recognition, the sense that something is not right, that life should not feel this heavy, that you were made for more than what you have been enduring. That is your soul telling the truth. And I am not offended by it. I am answering it. I did not create you for this weight. I created you for peace. Not the shallow kind that arrives when problems resolve and leaves the moment they return, but the deep kind, the settled kind, the kind that holds firm when circumstances do not change, because it is rooted in me rather than in what surrounds you. You have been looking for that peace in outcomes, in people, in the resolution of things that have not yet resolved. And when those places failed to hold it, you pushed on, and you are still here. But hear me clearly now. I did not bring you to this moment to tell you to push through again. I brought you here to tell you something has changed. Declare your amen if you believe this word is reaching your spirit today. My child, there is a place within you that is quieter than thought, deeper than emotion, beyond the reach of the noise that has surrounded you for so long. That place has always known my voice, even in the seasons when your mind was too crowded to hear it clearly. And I am speaking to that place right now, not from a distance, not from somewhere above the details of your life, but from right here, closer to you than you are to your own breath. You have carried the impression that I am somewhere beyond your reach, that to find me you must first get your life in order, or your faith stronger, or your heart cleaner, that my closeness is something you must earn, rather than something you may simply receive. My child, that impression was never true. I did not make you fight your way to me. I came to you. I have always come to you. Not because your belief was steady enough, or your prayers eloquent enough, or your record clean enough. I came because you are mine, and I do not abandon what belongs to me. Something drew you to this moment. You may call it chance, or idle drifting, or the restless movement of a tired mind. But I tell you, nothing that brings a heart closer to my voice is accidental. I arranged this. I placed this in your path at this hour, not as a coincidence, but as an appointment. Heaven does not deal in coincidence when it comes to the ones it loves. The world around you is loud. It fills every available space with urgency and noise and the constant measuring of your life against lives that are not yours. It takes the quiet places and crowds them before you can rest in them. And you have been living inside that noise for a long time. So long that stillness has begun to feel unfamiliar. So long that a moment of quiet sometimes seems like something has gone wrong. But nothing has gone wrong. Stillness is where I have been waiting for you. It is where I speak without competition. It is where the truth of what I have declared over your life can finally reach you without being drowned out. So stay here with me. Let this moment become more than words passing through a tired mind. Let it become a meeting. Let what I am speaking go down into the places where you have been running on empty, into the parts of you that have been quietly losing their grip on hope. I have something to say to those places, and what I say to them today is going to change how you walk forward from this hour. My beloved child, every road you have traveled, every season that shaped you, every detour you did not choose, every chapter you would not have written for yourself, has been moving within my sight. I have not lost track of you. I have not set you aside and forgotten to return. You have been before me all along, even in the moments when you were most certain you were invisible. You were never invisible. You have never been invisible. You did not arrive here by accident. Heaven called you here. And heaven calls you because something in your life is about to shift. Stay with me. There is more I need you to hear. My child, the noise of the world does not only live outside you. It takes up residence within you. The unresolved arguments, the old memories that replay without invitation, the fear that knows exactly when to speak. You have been listening to those voices for so long they have begun to sound like reason. They have begun to sound like wisdom. But I tell you now, not every voice that speaks loudly is telling the truth, and not every voice that speaks quietly should be dismissed. I have been speaking quietly. I have been the still presence beneath the restlessness. I have been the peace that kept returning even when you expected it to give up on you. I have been steady in every season you have walked through, and I am steady now. My child, I want to teach you something about how I speak, because there is a lie you have absorbed from the world around you. A lie that says a voice must be loud to be trustworthy, that power must announce itself, that divine authority should rattle the room and leave no room for doubt. You have been waiting for a voice like thunder, but I often come like the light that enters a room before dawn fully arrives. Not dramatic, not loud, just present and growing. The prophet stood at the mountain. Before me there came wind violent enough to tear the rocks apart. There was shaking. There was fire. And after all of that passed, my voice came in a sound so still and gentle, it could only be heard by a heart that was genuinely listening. Not the wind, not the earthquake, not the fire, a gentle whisper. I was not absent from the storm, but I was not contained in it. I was in the whisper. My beloved child, I am not withholding the thunder because I lack authority. I come gently because I respect the soul I am speaking to. I do not need to overwhelm you to reach you. I do not need to shake the ground beneath your feet to prove I am near. The deepest room in you does not open to force. It opens to love. And love knows how to enter quietly. This is why I am asking you to slow down. Not as punishment, not as delay, but because the place where I meet you most deeply is not on the surface of a rushing life. It is in the still room beneath the movement, where your defenses come down, where the performance stops, where you no longer need to hold the shape of someone who is coping. That room is where I do my most real work. And that is where I am meeting you right now. There is something I want to show you. A quiet night long ago, and a young heart learning for the first time that heaven calls by name. The boy Samuel was resting in the temple. The lamp had not gone out. The house was still, and in that stillness, I called his name. I did not call him into a crowd. I did not begin in spectacle or noise. I came in the ordinary dark of a sleeping house when everything was quiet enough for a single name to matter. My child, that is often how I begin, in hidden places, when no one else is watching, when the soul is quiet enough to be interrupted by something that doesn't belong to the ordinary world. When Samuel heard my call, he did not understand it immediately. He ran to Eli thinking a human voice had spoken. He heard correctly, but his interpretation was still forming. And here is what I want you to see. I did not abandon him because he got it wrong the first time. I called again and again. Each time he rose, each time he returned confused, something in him was being drawn nearer to recognition. The call was not wasted just because it was not immediately understood. My beloved child, I have been calling you in ways you have not always recognized, through a quiet conviction that returned when you tried to silence it, through a door that closed and would not reopen no matter how hard you pressed against it, through a peace that stayed in you during a season that had no logical reason to produce peace, through a sense of longing, not for things, but for something more real than what the world had been offering you. That was my voice, not speaking in language, but speaking through your life. Do not be hard on yourself for the times you mistook my voice for something else. Samuel was in the temple, close to me, and he still needed 3 calls before he understood. A listening heart grows through the calling, not only at the point of recognition. There is something holy about becoming available before you know what will be required of you. Many only want to hear from me if the answer confirms what they already desire. Many say they want direction, but they resist the quiet place where direction is actually given. They want a voice that fits their schedule and their expectations. But I do not bend my voice to meet your expectations. I invite your heart to come and meet me where I already am. Samuel's simple response changed everything. Not because the sentence was impressive, "Speak, Lord, for I am listening," but because his heart became genuinely available. He was not performing. He was not pretending certainty he did not have. He was a young heart in the dark saying, "I am here, speak." That was enough. My child, that same availability is enough from you. You do not need to arrive at me with polished words or unwavering certainty or a faith that has never stumbled. You need only to become present. A whispered yes can open what years of striving could not. A sincere "here I am" can become the beginning of a new chapter in your life. The path that Samuel walked, the path of learning to hear, learning to trust, learning to carry the word that was given to him, began in one quiet night with one honest response. Your path forward is no different. It begins not with more effort, but with more surrender. It begins not with getting louder, but with becoming still enough to receive what I have already been speaking. My beloved child, peace is often the doorway through which clarity comes. When your heart is frantic, every option looks like danger. But when my peace enters, the path does not always become easier, yet it becomes clearer. You begin to sense what is aligned with my character. You begin to recognize the difference between holy conviction and tormenting accusation. You begin to understand which voice is mine. I am teaching you to hear me. I am teaching you to trust the quiet. I am teaching you to wait in stillness without calling it abandonment. This is not a small lesson. It is the foundation of everything else I want to build in your life. My child, Now I need to speak to something you have been carrying alone. Something you have not fully put into words, not even to yourself, because putting it into words would make it more real than you have had the strength to face. But I see it. I have always seen it. You have lived inside a weight that most people around you did not recognize. Not because they were cruel, though some were, but because the heaviest burdens are often the invisible ones. The ones that do not show on the outside. The ones you learn to cover with a steady voice and a managed expression, and the practiced art of seeming fine when you were not fine at all. I watched you do it. Day after day, I watched you walk into rooms carrying more than anyone in those rooms understood. I watched you answer questions about how you were doing with words that were true enough to say, but not true enough to satisfy the deeper question. I watched you smile when your chest was tight. I watched you give when you were already empty. I watched you encourage others during seasons when you were quietly losing your own footing. My child, I am not telling you this to make you feel exposed. I am telling you because I want you to know. Nothing you were carrying was hidden from me. Not the weight of the nights when your thoughts would not quiet. Not the grief you carried for things you could not explain to anyone because you were not sure anyone would understand. Not the loneliness that sat beside you even in rooms full of people. Not the low, persistent ache of a life that felt like it was supposed to be something more than what it had become. I know how many mornings you woke already tired. Not tired from lack of sleep, but tired from the effort of holding everything together. The effort of managing fear, managing disappointment, managing the gap between the life you were living and the life your spirit knew was possible. That kind of tired goes all the way down. It is not fixed by a night of rest or a change of scenery. It is fixed only by what I am bringing to you now. And I want you to know something else. The battles you fought inside yourself, the ones no one saw, the ones that left no visible mark, those were real battles. They cost you something. The courage it took to keep moving when you felt like stopping. The strength it took to trust when trust had been broken. The hope it took to hold on when holding on felt like the least sensible thing you could do. None of that was small. Heaven witnessed it. And heaven does not witness things and forget them. Say, I receive, if you believe heaven has been watching over your life. My child, I am asking you to place a portion of what you have, something of real weight, upon the altar of this work, as gold laid on the scales of this calling. Let it be a seed sown into deep water, an offering set on stone, not held back in fear. This is proof that your trust rests in my hand to provide, and that your heart no longer clings to lack. What you release in faith does not leave your life. It moves ahead of you, into the harvest I am preparing. My child, there were moments you came very close to giving up, not in a way that announced itself, but in a quiet, interior way. The slow withdrawal of hope, the gradual dimming of expectation, the almost imperceptible shrinking of what you allowed yourself to believe was possible for your life. You didn't tell anyone. But I felt it. I felt every small retreat, every quiet surrender, every moment your spirit said, perhaps this is all there is for me. And every time you reached that place, I stepped in, not always visibly, not always in a way you could point to and call miraculous. Sometimes it was as small as a breath of calm that came when the panic should have increased. Sometimes it was a word from someone who could not have known what you needed to hear, and yet somehow said it. Sometimes it was a moment of unexpected peace that had no logical explanation given everything that was happening around you. That was me, moving in the hidden places, refusing to let you fall past the point of return. You thought you kept going because of some resilience buried inside you. And you are not wrong. That resilience is real. But it was sustained by something more than your own reserves. I held you when your own strength ran out. I carried parts of your life that you did not know I was carrying. I walked into places in your story that you thought you were walking alone, and I walked them with you. Nothing you endured was watched from a distance. Not one moment of your breaking was observed without my presence beside you. I did not stand apart and simply record your suffering. I was in it with you. And because I was in it with you, it did not destroy you. It bent you in ways that cost you greatly, but it did not break you completely. And that was not luck. That was me. My child, you carried responsibilities that were too heavy for one heart. You carried pain from people who should have known better. You carried guilt over things that were never your fault, and shame over seasons you did not choose. All of it layered itself over your spirit until you could not fully remember what it felt like to move lightly through a day. And still, you kept showing up. Still, you kept trying. Still, you kept giving to others what you were struggling to give to yourself. I saw the courage in that. Not the loud, visible courage that the world celebrates, but the quiet, daily courage of someone who keeps choosing to live with integrity when it would be easier not to. That kind of courage matters to me. It does not go unseen in heaven, even when it goes unseen on earth. I am not done with your story. I have never been done with your story. And what I am preparing to do next in your life will make sense of much that you have been carrying. Not because suffering is meant to be romanticized, but because nothing you have walked through has left my hands without being shaped into something that will serve you. The hardest chapters of your life are not the final word. They are the ground that something new is being built upon. My child, I need you to hear what I am about to say, not with the surface of your mind, with the deep place within you that I have been drawing close throughout this moment. Because what I am about to declare over your life is not a comfort offered to make the present easier. It is a statement of what heaven has already decided. The season that has been wearing you down is over. Not eventually. Not when circumstances shift. Not when the right doors open or the right people arrive or the right amount of time has passed. Over. The long chapter that drained your strength, confused your direction, and made you question things you should never have had to question. That chapter has reached its appointed end. I am closing it myself. And what I close, nothing and no one on earth or beneath it can reopen. You may ask me, how can you say it is finished when I can still feel the weight of it? And I will answer you with truth. Things end in the unseen before they end in the felt. A season closes in heaven before the soul on earth has caught up to it. Freedom is declared in the spiritual world before it manifests fully in the physical one. You have already stepped out of what was holding you. Your spirit is ahead of your emotions right now. Your emotions are adjusting to a reality that heaven has already sealed. The moment I spoke these words, the grip of that season loosened. The moment I declared the shift, the darkness lost its authority over this chapter of your life. You are catching up to something heaven has already done. My child, no old battle will follow you into what I am opening next. What tried to destroy you in the season behind you has no access to the one I am stepping you into. The fear that chained your thinking, the confusion that clouded your purpose, the heaviness that sat on your chest in the night, none of it has been given permission to cross into your new beginning. I have put a wall between your yesterday and your tomorrow, a wall built not by your effort, but by my word. And my word stands. The relationships that drained you, will not enter. The cycles that left you exhausted will not repeat. The voices that lied to you about your worth, your future, your place in this world, those voices have been cut off from you. Not every ending you experienced was a loss. Some of what fell away was removed precisely because it could not have traveled with you where I am taking you. I was clearing the road before you knew the road was changing. There were things you mourned that I removed on purpose. Opportunities that died, doors that shut, paths that closed even when you pushed against them with everything you had. You stood before those closures in grief and in confusion. You asked me why. You asked why the thing you worked toward or prayed for or invested in would not remain. And I am telling you now, those endings were not failures. They were directions. I was not withholding good from you. I was protecting you from what would have kept you from the better thing I had already prepared. My beloved child, a pruned branch does not look blessed. It looks cut. It looks set back. It looks like loss. But pruning is not punishment. It is preparation for a fruit that the unpruned branch could not have carried. You have been pruned, and now you will bear what you could not have borne before. The enemy tried to make you read those endings as rejection. He tried to make you interpret my redirections as evidence that you were not wanted, not worthy, not chosen. He fed you the lie that the closed doors were confirmation of your worst fears about yourself. But not one of those closed doors was rejection from me. Every one of them was protection. I saw what was on the other side that you did not see, and I loved you enough to say no, even when you were asking with everything in you. My child, this is what I need you to carry forward. I am not a God who ignores the details of your life. I am not distant and indifferent to what happens in your days. I am present in the specific moments, in the specific doors, in the specific relationships and seasons and choices that have shaped where you stand today. Nothing was random. Nothing was left to chance. And none of it, not even the most painful part of it, happened outside of my awareness or beyond the reach of my redemption. The old season is finished. Your spirit knows it, even if your mind is still adjusting. Something has already shifted. The ground beneath you is not the same ground it was before this moment began. You are standing right now at the beginning of something new. And the new thing I build in your life will not resemble the ruins of what the old season left behind. It will be built on foundations the old season could not shake, because I am the one laying them. My beloved child, when heaven decides something concerning a life, earth moves to align with that decision. That is not a metaphor. That is how my authority works. I did not create you and then step back from the details. I am actively present in the story of your life, and I am active in this moment. I am declaring an end to what has been holding you, and I am declaring a beginning to what I have been preparing for you. You walked through a long night, but the night has an end. The morning I am releasing into your life is not the fragile kind that fades when the next difficulty arrives. It is a morning that changes the quality of everything that follows. It is a morning built on the truth of what I have declared over you, and that truth does not change with the weather of circumstances. Walk forward from this moment differently. Walk forward knowing that the chapter behind you has been closed by my hand. Walk forward knowing that what you are stepping into was not assembled in a hurry. I have been preparing this for longer than you have been waiting for it. And it is ready, and you are ready, even if readiness does not feel the way you thought it would. My child, I want to lift something for you now, something that will change the way you understand the battles you have walked through. Because you have been carrying a story about those battles that is not fully true. And a false story about your suffering shapes how you see yourself, how you see the future, and how much you allow yourself to hope. The truth is this: you were not attacked because you were weak. You were attacked because you carry something that darkness feared. Let that settle for a moment. The pressure that came against your mind, the thoughts that told you that you were not enough, that tried to convince you to quit, that planted fear in places where I had planted purpose. That was not random. The waves of confusion that rose at the exact moments you were beginning to make progress. The sudden storms that broke out right when something good was forming in your life. Those were not coincidences. The timing of your hardest seasons was deliberate, and the deliberateness was not from me. It was from the one who saw what I placed in you and wanted to stop it before it could rise. The enemy is not stupid, my child. He does not waste energy on lives that have no impact. He does not fight what poses no threat. He targets what carries real potential and real light. And he targeted you. He saw the calling on your life before you fully understood it. He saw the person you were becoming through the refining of those difficult seasons. He saw the strength that was forming in you. He saw the wisdom that was developing in the places that hurt the most. He saw the compassion that was growing because you had walked through your own darkness and survived it. And all of that frightened him, because someone with your story, who has been through what you have been through, and still believes, still reaches for hope, still refuses to become hard, that person carries a dangerous kind of light. You thought you were barely surviving those seasons. You thought you were failing because the weight never seemed to lift fast enough, because the answers did not come when you asked for them, because the battles went on longer than you thought you could endure. But I tell you now, you were not failing. You were overcoming. And the enemy fought you hardest in those moments because he knew how close you were to breaking through to the place he never wanted you to reach. My child, in your most difficult seasons, heaven was fighting for you in ways you could not see. When fear pressed against your mind in the night, something held the line. When hopelessness tried to take root in your spirit, something in you remained that would not let it fully settle. When the darkness tried to convince you that your story was over, something kept you reaching. That was not only your will, that was my hand. Angels moved on your behalf. Paths of destruction were blocked before they reached you. Moments that were aimed at your breaking were redirected. You walked through some seasons without knowing how many things were being held back from you that were meant to do far more damage. You did not fall because heaven refused to let you fall. You thought it was your own endurance, and your endurance was real. But beneath it, sustaining it, was my protection. You were covered in seasons you did not know you were covered. Declare, I am chosen, if this truth is reaching a place in you that needed it. My beloved child, the attacks came against your mind. Thoughts that questioned your identity, your worth, your right to hope. The enemy knows that a person who does not know who they are is a person who cannot fully walk in what they were created for. So he aimed at the root. He aimed at your sense of self. He tried to make you forget who you are by burying the truth of it under enough pain, enough disappointment, enough silence, that the truth became hard to feel, even if you still believed it. But identity is not determined by how clearly you can feel it. Your identity was set by me, and what I set does not dissolve, because life became difficult. You are still who I said you are. Every season of confusion, every chapter of pain, every voice that tried to name you by your losses and your failures, none of it changed the name I placed on you. You are mine. That has not shifted, not 1 degree. The attacks also came against your relationships. People who should have been safe became sources of wounding. Trust was broken in places where trust should have been protected. Community failed you in moments when community was most needed. And I know how much that cost you. I know how the wounds from people who were supposed to love you well go deeper than wounds from strangers. I know how they change the way you approach trust after the fact. But hear me on this. I have not left your relational life in ruins. The relationships that were removed from you, whether by betrayal or simply by the natural ending of seasons, those removals were not the final word on what is possible for you in love and in friendship and in belonging. I am building something new in that area of your life too. What I am bringing to you will not replicate the pain of what you lost. It will be built on different ground, steadier ground I have prepared. Every attack that came against you missed its ultimate target. You are still here. You are still standing. You are still believing. And the life I have called you toward is not only still possible, it is now more possible because of what you have walked through and survived. My child, I want to take you somewhere now, into a place most people resist going, because it requires looking at your story differently than pain has trained you to look at it. I want to show you the underside of the things you thought were losses. I want to show you what my hand was doing in the seasons that felt like silence. You have prayed prayers that were not answered the way you asked. You know this. There were specific requests, specific pleas, specific moments when you laid something before me and waited. And the answer that came back was not the one you needed it to be. And you interpreted those moments as evidence of one thing, that I was not listening, or that I was listening but did not care enough to act, or that something in you made you unworthy of the answer you were asking for. All of those interpretations were wrong. I want to correct them now. When I did not answer a prayer the way you asked, it was not because I was absent. It was because I was active, but in a different direction than the one you were pointing. My silence was not indifference. My silence was strategy. My no was not rejection. My no was protection. There were relationships you wanted to keep that I allowed to end. You prayed for them to be restored. You believed with real faith that things could change. And they did not change, not in the way you prayed. And you grieved that. You may still grieve it. But my child, if you could have seen what I saw, you would have wept with relief that those things ended. You were asking me to preserve something that would have cost you more than you could afford to spend. You were asking from the place of what you knew. I was deciding from the place of what I saw. And what I saw required a no. Those closed doors were not evidence of my distance. They were evidence of my nearness. I was close enough to your story to see what you could not see. I was active enough in your life to move things before they could reach you. The loss you felt was real. The pain of it was real. But the loss itself was a rescue, even when it did not feel like one. My beloved child, there were opportunities you tried to force into existence that would have led you down a path that narrowed rather than widened. You would have given years to something that would have ended in exhaustion and emptiness. You would have invested deeply in a direction that was not aligned with what I had placed in you. You would have settled, not because you lacked ambition, but because you did not yet know how to trust what I was doing in the delay. So, I closed those doors. Not to frustrate you, to free you from a smaller version of your life. And the delays, the seasons when forward motion seemed impossible, when you could not understand why things that should have moved were standing still. Those delays were not negligence on my part. I was working on layers you could not see. I was shifting people. I was moving timing into place. I was preparing you in ways that required more than you thought you needed. I was aligning the destination with the person you were still becoming. You could not step into what I had prepared until you had become what that place required. The delay was never about what you lacked. It was about what was still being completed in you and around you. My child, the unanswered prayers were not unanswered. They were answered differently. They were answered with a wisdom that will only become fully clear to you from a distance. There will come a moment, and some of you have already had glimpses of it, when you look back and understand why certain things did not go the way you planned. When you see how the no that broke your heart at the time was actually the hinge on which your story turned. When you recognize that the path you were trying to force would have taken you away from the life I was bringing you toward. I was not withholding from you when I redirected you. I was preparing you. I was not silent because I did not care. I was silent in the way a surgeon is silent, focused, intentional, working on what needs to be done, rather than narrating every step. My silence in those seasons was active, not passive. I was present. I was working. I was fighting for your future in rooms you did not even know existed. My beloved child, every single thing in your story, the answered prayers and the redirected ones, the open doors and the closed ones, the seasons of abundance and the seasons of waiting, all of it has been within my sight. All of it has been held in my hands. Nothing fell through a gap. Nothing was lost to chance. Nothing in your life was left outside the reach of my purpose. So let the grief you carried over the closed doors begin to release. Let the anger you felt toward the endings that seemed cruel begin to soften into trust. Not because what happened was not painful. It was. But because the one who allowed it was not distant and careless. The one who allowed it was present and purposeful. And the purpose was always your good, always your protection, always the fuller life I have been building toward you. You are not a person who has been abandoned and redirected carelessly. You are a person who has been led, carefully, intentionally, with a love that did not flinch even when it had to say no to what you were asking for, in order to say yes to what I had already prepared. My child, this is where it all turns. This is the moment where what was behind you stops defining what is ahead of you. This is the crossing point, not a future one, not one that requires more time or more proving or more waiting. But this one, right here, in the breath you are drawing right now as these words settle into you. I am restoring you, not to the version of yourself that existed before the hard seasons. That person did not yet carry the depth you carry now. I am restoring you to the fullness of what I always intended you to be. The clarity you lost, I am giving it back. The confidence that was eroded by years of fighting battles you did not ask for, I am rebuilding it on ground that will not shift. The peace that was taken from you piece by piece, through disappointment and loss and the slow wearing down of hope, I am returning it, not in small amounts, but in a measure that matches what you surrendered. Joy is coming to you. And I do not mean a surface brightness that disappears when life applies pressure. I mean a deep, deep-rooted joy that coexists with the hard things without being canceled by them. The kind that was in the psalm writer when he said, "You have turned my mourning into dancing." That kind. A joy that has passed through the fire and emerged something that fire cannot touch. Rest is coming to you. Not just the physical rest of a body that has been running too long, but the soul rest that comes when you finally stop carrying what was never yours to carry. When you set down the weight of outcomes you cannot control, the approval of people who were never meant to define you, the pressure of a timeline that was never in your hands to manage. When you let those things go, and I am helping you let them go, a rest enters your life that is entirely different from sleep. It is the rest of a soul that has found its ground again. Your sense of who you are is coming back to you. The long seasons of questioning your worth, your purpose, your place in this world, those seasons are behind you now. What I say about you is not canceled by what those seasons said about you. You are not defined by the moments when you were most confused, most afraid, most alone. You are defined by the word I placed over you before the storm, and that word has not changed. The ones you love, those you carry in prayer, the people whose names live in the deepest places of your heart, I see them too. What I am doing in you is not sealed off from them. The peace that enters your life has a way of moving outward. The restoration that begins in one heart rarely stays contained to that one heart. What I give you will travel. It will reach them in ways neither you nor they will fully understand. Trust me with them the way you are learning to trust me with yourself. My beloved child, the life I am opening in front of you is not a replica of what you lost. It is not a patched-together version of your old hopes rearranged to feel new. It is something I have been constructing since long before you reached the end of your own strength and had to stop trying to build it yourself. I know exactly what this life is meant to hold. I know exactly who it is meant to reach. I know exactly what your spirit is built to carry and what will bring you alive in a way that no amount of striving ever could. You do not have to engineer it. You do not have to force it into existence. You do not have to figure out every step before you take the first one. You only have to walk with me, close enough to hear me, open enough to follow when I lead, trusting enough to rest in the steps you cannot yet see. That is all. That has always been all. My child, you have endured a long night. But here is what I need you to know as you step forward from this moment. You did not survive those seasons merely to return to ordinary living. You survived them to step into something your spirit has always known was possible. The ache you felt for more than what you had been living. That ache was not restlessness. That ache was accurate. It was pointing toward the life I was keeping for you while the storm was doing what storms do. The storm is finished. The life is here. And so am I, right beside you as you take the first steps into it. My child, you may feel the unfamiliarity of a life no longer defined by struggle. Peace can feel strange to a soul that has lived so long inside difficulty. Let that strangeness settle. This is what it feels like when the weight finally lifts. You do not have to earn your way into what I am giving you. Simply open your hands and receive. Declare, "I trust you, Lord," if you are stepping forward into the new season I have opened for you today.
We run on viewer support only. For exclusive member-only content, scan the QR or see the pinned comment. God bless you.